Is the history of human civilization really just a few thousand years long? If you truly understand Earth's history, you'll realize there is a terrifying truth hidden within. According to the fossil record, the first humans appeared around 7 million years ago, the first human groups about 300,000 years ago, and the earliest civilized states only 6,500 years ago. Then comes an unbelievable question. Why did humans suddenly develop intelligence only about 400 years ago? Why did nearly all ancient civilizations around the world suddenly appear on Earth, then quietly vanish without a trace? All of this seems to suggest that in the distant past, Earth may have experienced a cataclysmic upheaval, one powerful enough to alter the history of terrestrial civilization. Perhaps we are not the first civilization to appear on this planet. Normally, the higher the soil layer, the younger it is. The deeper the older. Geological strata can be seen as the life record of Earth, each layer documenting in detail its rises and great transformations. Thinking this way, if we dig downward, we first see remnants of modern humans. Tools left behind decades ago, broken pottery shards, and ancient coins. Dig deeper and we encounter dinosaurs from 100 million years ago, or trilobite fossils from 500 million years ago. Yet, within the last 7 million years of strata, we find no evidence of prehistoric civilizations. Those who believe in ancient civilizations argue that maybe we've been digging in the wrong places, or perhaps traces of earlier societies have long since been lost to time, swallowed up by the flow of history. If Earth were destroyed today, within just 50 years all traces of human civilization could be wiped out. Over time, tectonic shifts, earthquakes and erosion would bury or obliterate our cities, until eventually everything would vanish into the river of time, becoming part of nature. And yet, future humans might still infer our existence through carbon-12 variations, proving that civilization once existed here. The frightening part is that geological surveys have already uncovered anomalies in Earth's deep past. In 1991, when scientists drilled into Antarctica, they discovered a strange phenomenon. At the end of the Paleocene about 55 million years ago, carbon-12 concentrations suddenly shifted, triggering global warming. This event, known as the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, lasted for 200,000 years, raising global temperatures by 8°. Even the polar regions turned into tropical rainforests, although scientists generally explain it as the result of massive volcanic eruptions, releasing carbon into the atmosphere. If we analyze it through the lens of civilization development, a chilling hypothesis emerges. When a civilization advances to a certain level, it inevitably undergoes an industrial revolution, using coal and oil as its primary energy sources. In just 200 years of our own industrial age, carbon emissions have already raised global temperatures by 1.2 degrees. If that ancient warming event was caused by industrial emissions, then that civilization must have reached at least a type 0.85 on the Kardashev scale. Unfortunately, this bold hypothesis lacks direct scientific evidence, so it cannot be universally accepted. Yet geologists have discovered more unsettling anomalies, such as in Jedburgh, Scotland. There, James Hutton observed a bizarre sight. Above lay a 370-million-year-old layer of red sandstone, while beneath it sat a 540-million-year-old hard sandstone. Yet the 70 million years in between were missing, as though deliberately erased. This phenomenon is called an unconformity. At first, scientists dismissed it as coincidence, but similar unconformities have been found in Portugal, New Mexico, USA, Gansu, China, near Dresden, Germany, and elsewhere. If Earth's 4.6 billion-year history were a 460-page book, that would mean at least 7 whole pages had been erased. What could cause such gaps? In 1869, geographer John Wesley Powell, while exploring the American West, studied the Grand Canyon. Its rock layers were like pages in a book, recording Earth's history in detail. What shocked Powell was that within the canyon, unconformities accounted for a missing billion years of history. If the 7 missing pages elsewhere could be explained by continental drift or tectonic changes, how do we explain 100 missing pages here? Even Darwin struggled with this. He could not find transitional fossils before the Cambrian explosion. Life seemed to appear suddenly without intermediate forms. This remains one of the biggest gaps in evolutionary theory. So during those hundreds of millions of missing years, what really happened? Was it simply geology, or the intervention of prehistoric civilizations? Think about it. From the Stone Age to our current spacefaring stage around Kardashev 0.7, humanity took about 2.6 million years. Yet from the Industrial Revolution to the first atomic bomb, only about 200 years passed. In Earth's 4.6 billion year history, there are 1,717 separate spans of 2.6 million years, even starting after the Cambrian explosion 540 million years ago. There were 207 such cycles, ample opportunity for prior civilizations to rise and fall. Nearly all the evidence seems to point toward a shocking possibility. More than 10,000 years ago, Earth may indeed have hosted earlier civilizations. To illustrate, look at these two photos. If they depict the same structure, they could serve as undeniable proof. One was taken in 1965 by NASA's Gemini 4 spacecraft. What startled researchers was an unusual landform in the Sahara, starkly different from the surrounding sands. Was it the ruin of an ancient construction? Strangely, just 2 years later, the CIA launched a secret operation related to this very site. The mission, codenamed Magnetic Gathering, was publicly described as a geomagnetic survey, but when the files were declassified in 2005, clues emerged. The document specifically mentioned unusual coordinates in the Sahara, with key details blacked out, hinting at something extraordinary. Officially, all data was to be shared openly with the scientific community. Yet some findings remain classified to this day. If it were only science, why the secrecy? Could it be they discovered something beyond science? Why such keen interest in the eye of the Sahara? Perhaps the answer lies in the legend of a lost civilization, Atlantis. The earliest account comes from the dialogues of the Greek philosopher Plato. According to him, the kingdom lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, founded by Poseidon, with Atlas as its first king. Atlantis boasted advanced science and a brilliant civilization. But when it prepared to invade Athens, it was struck by a great deluge, sank beneath the sea, and vanished from history. However, according to modern satellite maps, opposite the Strait of Gibraltar lies only the deep Atlantic Ocean and the vast Sahara Desert, certainly no trace of Plato's mythical city. But the story does not end there. The legend is only beginning. As more satellite images became available, researchers were astonished to discover that the Eye of the Sahara in Mauritania bore uncanny similarities, both in shape and in geographic position, to Plato's description of Atlantis. In his dialogues, Plato wrote that Atlantis was surrounded by mountains and opened out to the sea. Looking at the terrain around the Eye of the Sahara, its ring-like structure matches these features. Flood traces in the surrounding land, along with sediment layers discovered at the bottom of the Atlantic, quietly confirmed that this region was once underwater. Plato also noted that elephants thrived on Atlantis, and that the roofs of its palaces and temples were made from ivory. Remarkably, modern science has shown that the Sahara Desert was once a fertile oasis teeming with life, with abundant African wildlife. Not long ago, scientists even discovered fossils of ancient whales in the area. Even more coincidental, the Eye of the Sahara has a diameter of 23.5 kilometers, almost identical to the 23.4 kilometer measurement Plato described. Interestingly, local tribes near the Eye of the Sahara still preserve a legend. The first ruler of Mauritania was Atlas, the same name as the first king of Atlantis. According to Mauritanian oral history, their ancestor Atlas came from northern mountains, and the nation he founded lay precisely where the Eye of the Sahara is today. So where exactly are those northern mountains? Did Atlas truly exist? Modern satellite maps reveal that north of Mauritania lies the Atlas Mountains. Their name derives from the Titan Atlas of Greek mythology. Adding to the coincidence, the Atlantic Ocean itself was called the Sea of Atlas in ancient Greek. All of these clues suggest that Atlas might have been a real historical figure, and perhaps he did originate from northern lands near ancient Greece. This aligns with local traditions but raises a new question. Is their Atlas the same as Plato's? If all this is still not convincing enough, open a satellite map and look directly at the Eye of the Sahara. You'll see a striking white ring made mostly of gypsum. In antiquity, gypsum was a prized material, known as white gold, symbolizing wealth. Plato also wrote that Atlantis was rich in gypsum and many other metals. When so many coincidences are chained together, truth becomes ever more elusive and mysterious. Clearly, the matter is more complex than we imagine. Turning back to 440 BCE, when the Greek historian Herodotus once again visited Egypt, what he saw were no longer splendid temples, but collapsed ruins overgrown with moss. Over centuries, even the Great Pyramids were buried in sand. Ancient records became fragmented, like broken pieces adrift in an ocean of desert. From what he saw and heard, Herodotus pieced together a rudimentary world map. On this map, to the far east lay India, to the north countless rivers and unknown lands, and at the westernmost edge was marked both Atlas and Atlantis. When compared with modern satellite imagery, both references seem to point directly at the eye of the Sahara. What does this uncanny string of coincidences mean? Could Atlantis truly be the giant eye in the middle of the Sahara? Even more intriguingly, scientific studies reveal that during the Younger Dryas event, about 11,500 years ago, global sea levels rose abruptly, known as meltwater pulse 1b. This timing coincides almost exactly with Plato's account of Atlantis's disappearance. Yet to reject this hypothesis, one need only recall a crucial detail. Plato himself admitted the Atlantis story came from the politician Solon, who in turn heard it from Egyptian priests. With such a long chain of oral transmission, who can guarantee there were no mistranslations, distortions, or embellishments? Furthermore, none of the evidence so far proves conclusively that the Eye of the Sahara is indeed the lost Atlantis. Thus, in mainstream academia, no leading scholar has endorsed this theory, nor has any official body published a full investigation. My analysis also represents no authority. But have you ever wondered why so many sections of the CIA's magnetic gathering documents remain blacked out? Or why, in most declassified research projects, certain passages are still deliberately hidden, such as in Apollo mission records or UFO investigation reports? The truth is, what ordinary people see is only what they want us to see. This world still hides countless secrets far beyond our reach. That is why we must remain objective toward seemingly absurd ideas. Do not dismiss them outright, for it is these alternative voices that push us to think deeper and progress further. This is Bah Koa Vat Nu. Follow me, and you will discover too many truths. What ultimately was the ancient world really like? More than 10,000 years ago, could anyone have seen the entire world through the eyes of the Huaxia civilization? There exists a book that has sparked huge controversy. Some believe it records the 120,000-year lost history of humanity, since much of its content not only appears in reality, but also resonates with myths across many civilizations. In fact, in the Louvre Museum in France and at Assyrian palace ruins, there stand two giant sphinx-like statues with human bodies and wings. Their enormous feathered wings and human-like faces remain a mystery. Strangely enough, China's classic of mountains and seas, Shan Hai Jing, also describes such beings. Horse-bodied, human-faced, tiger-striped with wings flying across the four seas, their cries like rushing streams. Unless examined carefully, one might not even notice whether beneath those wings lies the body of a bull or a horse. But why does such a figure appear here? Could it be that humans long ago actually saw such creatures and recorded them? Even more astonishing, the Western Classic of Mountains section of the Shan Hai Jing describes a flying fish, shaped like a carp, with green scales, white head, and bird-like wings. Coincidentally, in the Atlantic Ocean today, there truly exists a species of flying fish that can leap meters above the sea and glide for over 40 seconds. What do these unbelievable coincidences mean? Could the Wenyao fish be nothing more than another type of flying fish? The disturbing part is that both the birdman, Yingjiao, and the flying fish appear in the west of certain mountains. Oddly, the Western Classic should be describing events northwest of ancient China, but instead, both creatures are associated with lands to our west. How could distant civilizations share the same mythological memory? The Classic of Regions Beyond the Seas also records a nation of one-eyed people, giants with their eye in the middle of their faces, immensely powerful. They were listed among 36 foreign nations in other ancient texts. At first glance, this was merely bizarre folklore. Yet the father of Western history, Herodotus, also wrote that beyond the land of the Isidones lived the Arimaspi, one-eyed men. Further still, the land of the gold-guarding griffins. Even Greek and later Roman myths tell of one-eyed giants. Why do such oral traditions exist simultaneously in both East and West? Why did two ancient peoples, separated by thousands of miles, preserve the same mythological memories? These endless questions remain unanswered, yet astonishing discoveries keep surfacing. For instance, in a Danish church, researchers uncovered a strange mural. A mural depicts a headless giant, with an eye on his chest and a mouth at his navel. This image is none other than Xingtian from Chinese mythology. But why does it appear here? According to the Classic of Mountains and Seas, Shan Hai Jing, in the Classic of the Great Wilderness West, Xingtian once fought the Yellow Emperor for supremacy. Though decapitated, he continued to fight, wielding a shield and axe until his last breath. Could it be that the mural's creator wished to tell us that Xingtian's battle actually took place in Denmark? That long ago, the myths of our civilization had already been carried westward across oceans? The chilling part is that these parallels are only the tip of the iceberg. The deeper one studies the Shanhaijing, the more uncanny coincidences appear. Gradually, the truth began to emerge. An American scholar, Ms. M., after reading Wieriger's translation of the Shanhaijing, proposed that its records might actually describe the geography, creatures, and fantastic beasts of an ancient civilization long lost to time. Yet, when compared against modern satellite imagery, none of the mountains and rivers described in the classic of the Eastern Mountains could be found anywhere in Asia. If those mountains and rivers are not in Asia, could they belong instead to the American continent, lying at the far eastern edge of China's ancient worldview? To test this hypothesis, Ms. M. embarked on a journey to seek mountains that do not exist. Step by step, she retraced the text's directions, converting ancient Chinese li into modern miles. If the text recorded 300 li westward, she traveled exactly 300 li west. Following this method, she recreated the route described in the Shanhaijing. In the end, she uncovered a startling truth. The orientations of 4 great mountain ranges in the Shanhaijing aligned with 4 ranges in the Americas. Their distances, the distribution of animals, and the flow of nearby rivers showed uncanny consistency. During her expedition, she also found that Native American tribes still passed down a myth of 10 suns appearing in the sky, a story identical to one recorded in the Shanhaijing and other ancient Chinese texts. How could 2 continents, separated by vast oceans, preserve the same myth? Could it be that in remote antiquity, people from one land traveled to the other, or that both peoples once shared a single cultural root? Ms. M. even suggested that the Great Chasm described in the Shanhaijing was none other than the Grand Canyon in Arizona, USA. Drawing upon her years of field research, she came to a shocking conclusion. More than 2,000 years before Christ, the ancient Chinese had already set foot in the Americas. She compiled her findings into a book, which caused a sensation as soon as it was published. For if her claims were true, then Chinese history would stretch back not merely 5,000 years, but far longer. Yet, critics argue that her interpretations are strained, overly subjective, and lack direct archaeological evidence. After all, basing such conclusions solely on a text of uncertain date cannot prove that the Chinese reached America in antiquity. As a result, neither her research nor the Shanhaijing itself has been recognized by mainstream academia, which continues to classify the book as pure mythology with no historical value. But then, how do we explain the remarkable coincidences noted earlier? Are they truly nothing more than imposed interpretations? This is Bach Koa Vat Ngu. Follow me, and you will learn far too many things. So what exactly was heaven in the distant past? If I were to tell you that for the ancients, heaven was not the sky as you imagine, but a giant head, what would you think? Look at the oracle bone script for the word Tian, heaven. Now compare it with the oracle bone script for Ren, man. Why does the character for man carry a round object above the head? What could that symbol mean? Could it be that for the ancients, heaven was a tangible entity? In 2009, historian Dr. Li Weidong analyzed these characters and put forward a startling theory. In prehistoric times, a cataclysm shook the earth. It not only erased an earlier civilization, but also altered humanity's very perception of heaven. Myths like the sky tilting northwest, the earth sinking southeast, Gong Gong crashing into the mountain, and Nuwa patching the sky may not be allegories at all, but records of real disasters. And perhaps the truth is hidden within these very characters. Another scholar, after compiling countless ancient myths and conducting years of specialized research, argued that heaven was indeed a physical body, and that all these cataclysms pointed to one small celestial object, the moon. When this conclusion was published, it sparked fierce debate. If not for his academic credentials, he would have been dismissed outright as a conspiracy theorist. What exactly did Dr. Li Weidong discover that led him to link the ancient idea of heaven with the moon? Why did ancient myths begin to elevate the concept of heaven only after tales of heaven collapsing and the severing of the link between heaven and earth? Most mainstream experts dismiss Li's theory as baseless speculation, lacking archaeological evidence. Yet curiously, in Inner Mongolia, in the Yinshan Mountains, archaeologists discovered murals depicting a man solemnly worshipping a great spherical object. Based on other contemporary artworks, this object does not seem to represent the radiant sun, but rather something massive, overshadowing the sky itself. What was this sphere? Could it have been the heaven the ancients spoke of? If we follow Dr. Lee's reasoning, then heaven was a tangible sphere, and the oracle bone script seems to support this. The ancients were masters of pictographic thought. Through their characters, we can glimpse the world as they once saw it. But why did Dr. Lee insist that the head in the oracle script for heaven refers specifically to the moon? Perhaps the answer lies in mythology itself. Across the vast corpus of ancient Chinese myths, countless stories revolve around the sun and the sky. Yet the moon is almost entirely absent. It is only in later tales of Nuwa, Fuxi, Zhurong, the Yellow Emperor, Shihei, and Sheneng that the moon begins to appear. Why is the most prominent body in the night sky missing from the earliest myths? Was there truly no moon in prehistoric times? Or was the moon so sacred that it was forbidden to describe in writing? One might think that with the moon landing, all its mysteries would be solved. But in truth, the opposite happened. On July 21, 1969, when Neil Armstrong left humanity's first footprint on its barren soil, a flood of new enigmas emerged. First, the live broadcast of the landing mysteriously cut out for more than 4 minutes, a blackout still unexplained. Later, when the lunar module's return stage crashed into the moon, seismographs detected reverberations that lasted for over an hour, almost as if the moon rang like a bell. Stranger still, analysis of lunar crater data revealed that regardless of impact size, all craters share a similar depth, about 10 kilometers. What are these bizarre phenomena telling us? Could it be that what we know is only the tip of an unfathomable iceberg? The more humanity learns, the more unanswered questions arise, turning the moon itself into a riddle without a solution. Did a prehistoric civilization truly exist? If so, what catastrophe erased it? And why do myths from around the world preserve a memory of the Great Flood? Could this shared memory be evidence that Earth did in fact endure a cataclysm in the distant past? And could the cause of that cataclysm really be encoded, as Dr. Lee Weidong suggested, in the oracle bone script itself? This is Bak Koa Vatengu. Follow me and you will learn far too many things. Over 10,000 years ago, just how advanced were humans? Perhaps the myths we know today were actually records of historical events that truly happened. Among all prehistoric ruins, there is one site even more difficult to explain than the pyramids. If genuine, it would push the timeline of human civilization back 12,000 years, and even prove the existence of a prehistoric civilization. After all, the Sumerians, long regarded as humanity's first civilization, emerged only 6,500 years ago. Egypt's Great Pyramid dates back 4,500 years. China's Sangxingdui culture is around 4,000 years old. And yet carved into stones more than 10,000 years old, we find not only intricate images of animals, but also perfectly cut, razor-straight lines. This is Göbekli Tepe, the stone city that shocked the world. But 12,000 years ago, humans were supposedly still primitive, relying on simple tools, still living as hunter-gatherers. So what tools did they use? How could they polish stone surfaces to such precision? What stunned archaeologists even more was the discovery that beneath the barren hill lay successive layers of stone temples, each grander and more elaborate than the one above. The deeper archaeologists dug, the older the structures became, and the more advanced their craftsmanship. But the great mystery is this: why would the ancients, after completing each vast stone complex, deliberately bury it, then build a smaller one above it, only to bury it again, repeating this process for millennia? Could it be that they had discovered something unusual, something that compelled them to seal each site away? Speculations abound. Given the level of technology at the time, even transporting a single megalith would have required hundreds of people. Building even the smallest uppermost complex would have taken at least 500 workers laboring non-stop for 5 years. Yet 12,000 years ago, it should have been impossible to gather such large groups. Even stranger, around Göbekli Tepe no traces of daily human life have been found, no evidence of quarrying, no remains of settlements. It is as if these vast temples suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Radiocarbon dating and other methods revealed something almost unbelievable. Construction began around 11,450 years ago and continued until roughly 9,150 years ago. That means the ancients labored here for about 1,500 years, generation after generation, like the legendary Yugong moving mountains, until they suddenly stopped. But in all of human history, no dynasty, east or west, has lasted more than a few centuries. So what kind of faith could sustain people across 1,500 years to build, bury, and rebuild stone sanctuaries on this hill? What kind of civilization could endure so long, yet leave no trace in recorded history? Though the truth remains uncertain, the carvings at Göbekli Tepe reveal a strange coincidence. Depictions of a handbag appear not only here, but also in Sumerian art and Egyptian temples. How could civilizations separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles share such identical symbols? Could they all have stemmed from a single prehistoric civilization? Or does the handbag itself carry a deeper meaning? Some researchers suggest these symbols might represent a kind of prophecy, or perhaps a calendar and star chart. The V-shaped motifs may correspond to the solar year, while the animal figures may indicate constellations. Could Göbekli Tepe have been an ancient observatory? In 2019, archaeologists at nearby Karahan Tepe uncovered similar megalithic structures, dating even earlier than Göbekli Tepe. Unlike Göbekli Tepe, they also found abundant traces of daily life. Could it be possible? The Karahan Hills were actually the residential area of a city, while Göbekli Tepe was used for religious ceremonies. Coincidentally, the distance from the Karahan Hills to Göbekli Tepe is exactly the same number of kilometers as the distance from the Forbidden City to the Temple of Heaven in Beijing, 37 kilometers. Could it be that 12,000 years ago, there once existed a great city here, 10 times larger than the capital of Beijing? Could Master Ming's Göbekli Tepe stone formation be related to the ancient Huaxia civilization? The prehistoric truth about Göbekli Tepe is becoming more mysterious and unpredictable, with many unanswered questions continuing to surface. Why did they bury the stone city and then rebuild it? Why is there no record of such a massive project in historical documents? Why did people 12,000 years ago possess technology far ahead of their time? Perhaps the truth of this event lies hidden within a cosmic catastrophe more than 10,000 years ago. Recently, Professor Martin, an archaeologist from the University of Edinburgh, after years of preliminary research, suggested that the purpose of constructing the Göbekli Tepe stone formation was to record the meteor shower and Earth impact of that time, and to predict future changes in planetary orbits. When we examine geological data, we find that indeed about 12,000 years ago, there was a global mass extinction event, known as the Quaternary Extinction Event. During that extinction, more than half of all mammals weighing over 40 kilograms, such as mammoths and saber-toothed cats, disappeared. And aren't humans also mammals weighing over 40 kilograms? It seems the clues lead us back to the starting point. Perhaps by decoding the information hidden within the stone formation, all questions could be answered. Yet the truth only becomes more mysterious and unfathomable. Scientists discovered that in geological layers older than 12,900 years, life was abundant. But after that time, no traces could be found, and sudden shifts in global temperature were also recorded. This unusual geological change is what scientists call the Younger Dryas event. About 12,900 years ago, when Earth was suddenly struck by a meteor shower from the constellation Taurus. Soon after, a series of meteorites crashed into Earth and the Moon, causing sea levels to rise and abrupt climate change, leading to mass extinctions. Comparing the carvings at Göbekli Tepe with Professor Martin's hypothesis and with ancient myths from many civilizations, the truth seems to be gradually revealed. Could it be that 12,000 years ago, a meteor shower lasting hundreds or even thousands of years forced prehistoric people to expend enormous time and effort building the stone city of Göbekli Tepe? Their purpose may have been to record and predict astronomical phenomena that might occur in the future. Scientists have simulated the meteorite impact points of the Younger Dryas event, and by examining the craters left behind, one wonders, was this the true cause of the great flood legends found across the world? Imagine that sudden violent flood of that time sweeping away all traces of prehistory in an instant. Splendid temples, glorious palaces, and entire civilizations built by the ancients were swallowed up by the flood and buried in the river of time. The Greek philosopher Plato also once spoke, in his dialogues, of a great flood that submerged Atlantis. Coincidentally, archaeologists have confirmed that the time Atlantis supposedly sank may have been around 9600 BC, about 11,600 years ago. Let us now compile the timelines mentioned above. The truth has become quite clear. In that cataclysm that reshaped heaven and earth, what despair must prehistoric people have endured? Perhaps it was the same despair as in the myth of Nua patching the sky, when heaven tilted to the northwest and the earth sank in the southeast. Why? Based on current geographical coordinates, can we never find the locations mentioned in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, Shanhai Jing? Could it be that the Classic of Mountains, Classic of Seas, and Classic of the Great Wilderness actually represent three coordinates of prehistoric time? One describes the geography before the Younger Dryas, one during the Great Catastrophe, and one after, when Nua rebuilt civilization. Of course, this is just a hypothesis. It is speculative knowledge. Follow me and you will know too much. A terrifying truth suggests that if excavations at Sangsing Dui, 3 Stars Mound, continue, not only will that civilization be confirmed, but there is also a high possibility that it originated from ancient Huaxia. What is even more shocking is that in Nagaland, India, locals have photographed tribes looking almost identical to Sangsing Dui bronze statues. These people not only have the custom of large ear piercings, but also wear jewelry strikingly similar to Sangsing Dui relics. They have yellow skin tones and call themselves descendants of the dragon clan. The difference, however, is that the dragon they speak of is not the traditional Chinese dragon. So the question arises, how did the people of Sangsing Dui migrate to India? Could it be that this land once belonged to the ancient state of Shu? If not war and turmoil, what else could have driven them to drift here? Even more puzzling is that the strange artifacts unearthed at Sangsing Dui are not just 1 or 2. For example, in Sacrificial Pit number 2, there is a bronze sacred tree. On its branches live 9 bronze birds. Strangely, the Classic of Mountains and Seas, in its Classic of the Eastern Sea Beyond, also records such a tree. On the Fusang tree there were 10 suns. When they bathed in the water, 9 rested below and 1 rose above. Although the bronze tree has only 9 birds, could it be that the author meant to include the 10th sunbird already in the sky? If the bronze sacred tree is indeed the Fusang tree, then the myths in the Classic of Mountains and Seas and its descriptions of non-existent mountains and rivers may actually represent 12,000 years of history lost to humanity. Even more coincidentally, similar tree motifs also appear on Sumerian reliefs. Proponents of the theory that Sangsing Dui has Western origins argue that this proves the civilization came from the distant West, citing forced evidence like golden masks and artistic styles resembling Sumerian clay tablets. They also point to the golden scepter, supposedly a symbol of Western power, and the Sumerian-style sunwheel. But faced with these flawed arguments, how do they explain the golden masks of ancient Egypt? Ignoring skin tone, the artistic style of those faces has no relation to Western peoples, but instead strongly reflects Asian characteristics. For hidden reasons, Western scholars have categorized ancient Egypt as a Western civilization. Even in films there are insinuations that the West once ruled the world. Such appropriation of world cultural heritage is an act of cultural hegemony. They refuse to admit that the East also had civilizations older than Greece. Thus, Western media outlets began spreading the idea that excavations at Sangsing Dui were halted, not only because the deeper you dig, the more confusing it gets, but also because continuing might trace the origins of Huaxia civilization back to the East, not the West. Yet what conspiracy theorists did not expect is that Chinese civilization has a continuous history of 5,000 years. Everything that happened through dynasties was recorded in historical texts. The Book of Documents records that when King Wu conquered the Shang, 8 lords joined him, including the state of Shu. Though Shu was later destroyed by Qin, the memory of Shu persisted in folklore. Even in Sangsing Dui artifacts, we can find traces consistent with historical records. For instance, this wooden mask unearthed from Sacrificial Pit number 4, with its peculiar style, has been used as fuel by conspiracy theorists. Many who do not know the truth after watching misleading videos naively believe that this style is not characteristic of Huaxia. But those who understand history know that over 2,000 years ago, the Chronicles of Huayang recorded that Shu Ho Kankong, also called Mu Song, was honored as king. Is this not precisely the figure depicted in the mask, the image of Shu's first ruler, Kankong? Some bloggers, just for views, spread claims that the more you dig at Sangsing Dui, the more confusing it gets. So, what is the real intention here? Looking at all the artifacts excavated from Sangsing Dui, is there any that has not been mentioned in historical records? Can we really conclude based only on a few baseless rumors or embroidered tales passed down by word of mouth? If we follow the shadow-chasing reasoning of conspiracy theories, then couldn't we also say that the similarities between Sanxing Duai and ancient Egypt exist because both cultures originated from ancient Huaxia? Or perhaps in the distant prehistoric past, when the continents were still connected, humanity shared common cultures and beliefs. Of course, all of this is just hypothesis, but at the very least, it is more fair-minded than those bloggers who, for the sake of views, willingly offer their own culture up to the West. This is speculative knowledge. Follow me and you will know too much. Why is it that based on modern geographical coordinates, we can never locate the places recorded in the classic of mountains and seas, Shanhai Jing? Is Shanhai Jing merely a book of mythology? Or, long ago, did someone actually see those creatures and record them? In 1953, an American scholar named M., after reading Wieriger's translation of Shanhai Jing, decided to personally search for those supposedly non-existent mountains and rivers. A series of bizarre discoveries sent chills down her spine. 4 mountain ranges in the Americas, matched with astonishing accuracy the descriptions in the classic of the Eastern mountain section of Shanhai Jing. Not only that, she also discovered that the Great Chasm described in the book corresponded precisely to the Grand Canyon in the U.S., and even the sea creatures mentioned in the text could indeed be found in the Americas. After many years of research, Bass reached a shocking conclusion. At least 4,000 years ago, the Chinese had already explored the Americas and even brought Huaxia culture there. Could it be that the records in Shanhai Jing are true? If so, then where did those prehistoric beasts go? And why did those ancient landscapes suddenly vanish? It turns out that scientists may already have found the answer within the geological layers. They discovered that in strata dating back 12,900 years, fossils of saber-toothed tigers and giant elephants were abundant. But directly above that layer was only a thin sheet of black mud, containing even nanoparticles that had been melted under extreme heat. These traces are double proof of both flooding and extremely high temperatures. Through geological analysis, scientists reached a chilling conclusion. Earth at that time was struck by a meteor shower from the constellation Taurus. Countless meteorites bombarded the planet, and in an instant Earth became a living hell. Experts refer to this extinction event as the Younger Dryas period. Immediately afterward, the ice sheets of the northern hemisphere melted rapidly, triggering a global flood. Perhaps this is the true origin of the myth of heaven tilting to the northwest, the Earth sinking to the southeast, and Nua's desperate attempt to patch the sky. We have long thought that the Great Flood in Emperor Yao's era was only legend. But why then is it that every ancient civilization in the world has its own record of a Great Flood? Could the Great Flood actually be the real historical memory of ancient humanity? Strangely enough, scientists found that about 12,000 years ago, sea levels on Earth suddenly rose twice. They named these the meltwater pulses EA and EB. In the following millennia, sea levels kept rising. The harsh climate not only submerged traces of prehistoric civilizations, but also wiped out countless species of plants and animals. Evidence clearly shows that in the past 12,000 years, global sea levels have risen on average about 140 meters. So, if we were to lower present-day sea levels by 140 meters to reconstruct prehistoric geography, a strange sight would appear. The legendary Three Seas Plain in Sundaland would emerge before our eyes. Only now do we understand the ancient tales about Lady Ma of the Eastern Sea riding a giant lobster, or her claim that she had personally witnessed the Eastern Sea transform into farmland 3 times. In Penglai, ancient waters were once far greater than they are today. Could this be the truth behind Shanhai Jing? The seas of the past became plains, while fertile oases turned into barren deserts. The information about the ancient world survives only as scattered fragments within myths of ancient civilizations. The traces left behind by those lost cultures have long been drowned in the flow of time. What remains are only faint, fragmented words, along with weathered pyramids, eroded carvings buried deep underground, and an incomplete, mysterious Shanhai Jing. We cannot imagine what catastrophes humanity endured back then, or how civilizations were cut off. Paleontologists have determined from geological strata that Earth has gone through 5 mass extinctions. The most familiar is the 5th, 65 million years ago, when an asteroid wiped out the dinosaurs. But textbooks never tell us that 12,000 years ago Earth went through a 6th extinction, known as the Quaternary Extinction Event. In this catastrophe, more than half of all mammals weighing over 40 kilograms disappeared. And aren't humans also mammals weighing more than 40 kilograms? The unbelievable part is that experts decoding the carvings at Göbekli Tepe discovered an eerie coincidence. Professor Martin, an archaeologist at the University of Edinburgh, concluded that the carvings there correspond to stellar coordinates from 11 to 900 years ago, recording a meteor shower impact that matches that very timeline. Looking back at the timelines already mentioned, after the Younger Dryas, the melting ice raised sea levels, causing global floods, which in turn led to the Quaternary extinction event. Sunderland and the Three Seas Plain may indeed have existed. These uncanny coincidences seem to hint to us that the classic of mountains, the classic of seas, and the classic of the Great Wilderness in Shanhaijing may in fact correspond to three major prehistoric events. The geography of mountains and rivers before the Younger Dryas, the catastrophes that occurred during the Younger Dryas, the geography after Foxy and Nua rebuilt heaven and earth and restarted civilization. Although these speculations have not been acknowledged by mainstream academia, the truth of prehistory seems hidden within the very myths we know. Perhaps only mythology remains the closest memory to the truth of that era. This is speculative knowledge. Follow me and you will learn too much. Do you believe that there once existed a great lost civilization on Earth? Here is a real video recording. An international expedition, while surveying the seafloor near the Hawaiian archipelago, unexpectedly discovered a straight paved road of golden bricks beneath the sea. Although scientists explained that the so-called Golden Road was simply a natural formation created by repeated volcanic eruptions, many still believe it to be the pathway to the legendary city of Atlantis. Then how do we explain this ancient gear-shaped object? In 1900, archaeologists diving near the Greek island of Antikythera discovered a device resembling gears. Upon research, scientists found that this device could not only precisely calculate time and dates, but also track the orbits of the moon, the sun, and the 5 major planets, and even predict solar and lunar eclipses months in advance. Even more astonishing is that this device appeared around 100 AD, while similar technology did not emerge in Europe until the 14th century. Even today, despite our advanced science, manufacturing such precise gears without modern machinery would be extremely difficult. To create such a device requires knowledge not only of mathematics, but also astronomy, physics, and many other advanced sciences. Could it be that, more than 2,000 years ago, ancient people already possessed knowledge that we only rediscovered in modern times? Or perhaps in the distant past, human technology reached heights far beyond our imagination, even surpassing that of today's civilization. Stranger still, nearly every mythology in the world records a great flood. Before the flood, myths describe a chaotic age of gods and strange beings. But after the flood, records of gods and demons become scarce. So can we say that the Great Flood marked the boundary of a civilization? And could those strange myths be nothing more than descriptions of ancient technology? For example, today we view airplanes and cannons as commonplace. But if described in the language of antiquity, would they not sound like this? In the northern seas there is a fish called kun. The kun is so vast that none can tell its length. It transforms into a bird called peng, whose wings cover the sky. Or like this: there is a thunder god, descending from the heavens, his power traveling along the earth, shaking mountains and rivers, resounding for 800 li. Even Einstein once predicted, "I do not know what weapons World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." If a prehistoric civilization truly existed, could it be that, as Einstein foresaw, a catastrophic war in the distant past triggered the Great Flood, wiping out human civilization overnight and breaking the chain of history? This is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Comparable to a 40-story building, its total weight is estimated at 6.84 million tons, with some stones weighing up to 50 tons. Even with modern technology, recreating such a feat would be a daunting challenge. How could the ancient Egyptians 4,500 years ago quarry such massive stones and transport them to such heights? To think this was done solely with manpower seems nearly impossible. Stranger still, the pyramid is said to be nothing more than a pharaoh's tomb. Yet pyramids are not unique to Egypt. They appear in ancient ruins across the world, even in the desolate ice fields of Antarctica, where pyramid-like structures have been photographed by satellites. Could this uncanny similarity suggest that all pyramids originated from the same civilization? Or perhaps that ancient cultures worldwide shared a common faith or religious system? And it is not only pyramids. In the Ica province of Peru, another mystery emerges. Archaeologist Paul Kosak, while flying over the Nazca Plateau, accidentally discovered gigantic geoglyphs, vast lines and figures etched into the earth, so large they can only be seen clearly from the sky. Among them are a hummingbird, 300 meters long, a monkey with a spiral tail stretching 108 meters, and an eagle over 50 meters across. The entire valley is covered with such lines, thousands of them, many intersecting into complex networks. Even today, new lines continue to be found, and scientists have not yet determined their full number. Radiocarbon dating suggests they were created around 500 BCE, more than 2,000 years ago. The puzzling fact is this: the geoglyphs can only be fully seen from at least 300 meters above ground. Only from such a height could someone have directed workers to carve these vast and precise shapes. Even with modern technology, without satellite data and laser surveying, it would be difficult to reproduce them. What then was their purpose? Some suggest they were maps, marking sources of water. But a stranger hypothesis was put forth by Swiss author Erich von Däniken. After more than 30 years of research, he proposed that the Nazca lines were actually landing strips for spacecraft, drawn as signals to extraterrestrials visiting Earth. According to his theory, the straight lines represent flight paths, while the animal figures symbolize constellations. For example, this geoglyph resembles an astronaut. Another resembles a spiral galaxy. Could these be direct evidence of alien contact? Though von Däniken's UFO runway theory has been mocked by mainstream scholars, it sparked a wave of curiosity about the vastness of the cosmos. Some now wonder if the Nazca people were mapping the stars, and if, long before modern times, they possessed knowledge of the universe and even the means to explore it. Not far from the Nazca Plateau, in a small town, peculiar engraved stones were discovered. These carvings depict not only heart surgeries and organ transplants, but also scenes of humans fighting dinosaurs. If these stones are authentic, they would be among the greatest discoveries in history, suggesting not only that prehistoric civilizations existed, but that humans and dinosaurs may once have lived side by side. Some engravings even depict spacecraft and telescopes, images difficult to reconcile with the knowledge of that era. But such strange artifacts are not confined to Peru. In Mesopotamia, British archaeologist Charles Leonard Woolley uncovered clay tablets from the ancient Sumerian civilization. At first glance, they seemed ordinary, but when deciphered, they revealed extraordinary accounts, records of prehistoric civilizations and visits from beings not of this world. According to these tablets, some 450,000 years ago, a group of extraterrestrials from the planet Nibiru came to Earth. They altered human beings and taught them advanced technologies, giving rise to the Sumerian civilization. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki. Nibiru's orbit was said to be elliptical, entering the solar system once every 3,600 years. The Anunnaki came to Earth in search of gold, needed to repair their planet's atmosphere. To solve the problem of labor, they genetically engineered humans and passed on advanced knowledge, planting the seeds of civilization. This is the tree of life unearthed in Sumer, astonishingly similar to the bronze trees of Sansingdui in China. The motifs and style are nearly identical, despite the two cultures being separated by thousands of kilometers. Why such uncanny similarity? Could these civilizations, though far apart, have been connected? Some archaeologists suggest that in the distant past, Earth's continents were joined as one supercontinent, Pangaea. If the Sumerian records are true, then perhaps when the Anunnaki departed, they erased evidence of their presence by unleashing catastrophic weapons that shifted Earth's crust, caused massive floods, and destroyed prehistoric civilizations. Of course, such theories are pure speculation without scientific proof. Modern scholars dismiss them as fantasy, yet many continue to believe in traces of lost civilizations. For example, this fossilized human footprint appears alongside trilobites, creatures from 500 million years ago, and this iron hammer, dated to the Devonian period, is at least 400 million years old. Though scientists dismiss these as modern intrusions into ancient rock, others believe they are relics of a prehistoric humanity that has long been forgotten. And then there is this mysterious map, drawn in 1531 by French mathematician Orontius Phineas. On it, Antarctica is clearly depicted, its coastlines and even mountain ranges. But Antarctica was not officially discovered until 1820, nearly 300 years later. How could this map exist? Stranger still, Antarctica on this map is shown without ice. Does this mean that in 1531, Antarctica was still a green, ice-free land? Yet modern geology tells us that the Antarctic ice sheet has existed for at least 5 million years, while Homo sapiens only appeared around 300,000 years ago. If this map is genuine, it suggests that the Antarctic ice sheet has melted at least once in the last 300,000 years. Even more intriguingly, when modern satellite maps are compared with this ancient map, the correspondence is striking. Phineas himself claimed he based his map not on his own exploration, but on even older charts. If such ancient maps truly existed, just how old were they? At a time when humans had only sailing ships and their own feet, how could anyone have mapped Antarctica so precisely? The Phineas map raises a profound question. What was the world really like more than 10,000 years ago? Could there have existed technologies far beyond what we can comprehend today? In the West, The Economist, a highly respected magazine, once wrote on its front page that perhaps China accomplished this feat even before Columbus, and that this ancient map may be proof that Chinese sailors were the first to circumnavigate the globe. If the map is authentic, it would mean that human history must be rewritten. After all, the Portuguese explorer Bartolomeu Dias only discovered the Cape of Good Hope in 1488. Columbus reached the Americas in 1492. Europeans did not know of Australia until 1606. Yet this map, dated 1418, not only shows Africa, but also the Americas, Oceania, and even Antarctica, discovered officially only in 1820, as well as the Arctic, which was not charted until the 16th century. Clearly, the existence of this map does not align with the known history, and many suspect it to be a forgery. But in 2006, tests conducted by a laboratory at New Zealand's Watt University confirmed that the paper on which the map was drawn indeed dated back to the exact era claimed. Could it be that our history is about to be rewritten? British Royal Navy officer Gavin Menzies, after careful study of this map and other documents, concluded that China was the first nation to explore the world. He went on to write the book 1421, The Year China Discovered the World. Could it be that the places marked on the map were destinations actually reached by Zheng He during his famous voyages? Yet Zheng He's own nautical charts look very different from this so-called complete map of all under heaven. Their style and technique are entirely distinct. Moreover, the official records of Zheng He's expeditions do not mention all the locations shown on this map. Strangely, however, at the location of Oceania, the map bears a note. In the 13th year of Yongle, eunuch Zheng He and Ma Sanbao led a mission to distant lands, bringing gifts and returning only in the 16th year of Yongle. Based on this description, some argue that the original map may have been drawn at that time. In the 13th year of Yongle, 1415, Zheng He's fleet may have reached small nations in Oceania, returning only in the 16th year, 1418. This timing matches the date written on the original map. Later, in 1763, during the reign of Emperor Qianlong, a cartographer reconstructed it under the title Map of Foreign Tributes to the Celestial Empire. The annotations are intriguing. For example, in the western United States, the map notes that the local people wear red and black feathers on their heads and around their waists. This matches what we know about Native American attire. In Mexico, the note says that cities are built of stone, roughly 10 in number, perhaps describing the ancient Mayan civilization famous for its pyramids. At the location of Australia, the map records that the natives do not know medicine and wear bones as ornaments. Historical sources confirm such customs among Aboriginal Australians. Even more curious is a note in the upper left corner. All names not marked in red existed on the original map. This means that all the red-marked regions already appeared on a much earlier map. Thus, by at least the 16th year of Yongle, 1418, these lands had already been discovered by the Chinese. Could it be that this map itself was based on an even older chart? If so, how did ancient cartographers achieve what seems like a God's eye view of the Earth, surveying every corner of the globe with such accuracy? Perhaps the world is far more mysterious than we think. In Turkey, at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, another extraordinary map was discovered, inside the office of Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis. Drawn in 1513, the Piri Reis map depicts not only North and South America and West Africa, but also Antarctica, with mountain ranges clearly outlined. Like the Orontius Phineas map, it portrays Antarctica completely free of ice. Even stranger, the annotations below describe the continent as inhabited by wild, naked people with dense forests, pungent herbs, and terrifying giant snakes. More astonishing still, Charles Hapgood, a Harvard scholar, compared the Peary Race map to modern surveys by the U.S. Geological Service. He found that the coastline drawn on the map matched with remarkable precision the Princess Martha coast of Queen Maud Land, an area buried under ice for millions of years. In his notes, Peary Race himself claimed that his map was compiled from more than 20 older charts, some of them dating back to the 4th century BCE, from the time of Alexander the Great. Once again, the same mystery arises. All these ancient maps seem to be based on even earlier ones, drawn from a perspective eerily similar to views from space. Even more uncanny, one photograph of Earth taken by an American lunar probe shows a distortion of South America's shape, stretched in exactly the same way as on the Peary Race map. The resemblance is striking. Does this mean that the ancient maps were actually based on images of Earth taken from space? Could it be that more than 10,000 years ago, someone was already observing our planet from the moon? Another mystery lies in the fact that all three of these ancient maps depict Antarctica without ice. Modern scientists estimate that if all of Antarctica's ice were to melt, sea levels worldwide would rise by about 66 meters, triggering catastrophic climate change. Could it be that the true cause of the prehistoric Great Flood was not only meteor showers or tectonic shifts, but the sudden melting of Antarctica's ice sheet?